Sound check 1 2 1 2. Okay. Uh, let's try this. Hi, Emily. This is Keith. So your mom told us that you're really excited about learning all this stuff about Arby's and Arby's history. She said perhaps you're interested in a career in Arby's, which I would certainly recommend. In that case, you'd want to talk to Marie because she has experience with management. I didn't quite stay that long because I was moving on, to other things, but I did get to the gold level crew member, so I can answer a lot of your questions too. To be honest, I would not talk to your mother about it. She wasn't really a very good employee in any way. I mean, she could handle a few things, but then she'd, get all goofy and start putting salt in the plants because she was pissed off about something, or there's rumors she drank at work. So just not a good role model for you in terms of the Arby's direction. Of course, we all know that she eventually became mature enough and smart enough to have a career that would go way beyond Arby's, but you never know what direction life is going to go. Anyway, I digress. So I don't have time to talk about everything today, but I did want to talk about the roast beef roasts themselves because I know you had a lot of interest in that. So this is basically ROP Arby's 101 course. And the three main things you need to know about roasts, they go through, there's sort of a phase of prediction where you try to figure out how many roasts am I going to need for today, given the day of the week, day of the year, things like that. Preparation, so this is how are they stored, how are they handled in the refrigerator, what's the process for cooking them, what internal temperatures do you need to watch out for because of food safety and health things. And getting all of these things right, not rushing them, is really important, not only to making a delicious roast, but also one that doesn't kill your customers. So in the prediction phase, this is a tricky one. So today, for example, is September 4th, 2023. Now, what do you model your prediction on? September 4th last year, the fact that it's a Tuesday, or are there holiday factors, extenuating circumstances that make this even more complicated? So in this case, I went back and looked at, last September 4th, a year ago, we used 5 roasts for the whole day. Not too many. If we're just looking at weekly, last Tuesday, 3 roasts. Well, of course, it's a very slow day, not a holiday. Last Labor Day is probably more relevant, even though it's not Labor Day now. Or sorry, it wasn't Labor Day then, but it's Labor Day minus 1 day. Whatever. One's a Labor Day, one's a not. And, last Labor Day, we had a need for 20 roasts. So then you'd need to use some more, careful prediction. Maybe you've used models and you've applied them and then applied correction factors, and all of this is in the RTM manual with all of the equations fully worked out. But usually sometimes you don't have the time to go through this, so you just sort of look at the 5 and the 3 and the 20 and you say fuck it, 8. And so you cook 8 roasts. So now we get to the preparation phase. Now the handling is really important. You've got a series of temperatures you have to go through. When they're frozen, of course, as everyone knows, they are 0 degrees Celsius, which is negative 32 degrees. No, sorry, 0 Fahrenheit. Subtract the 32, multiply by 9/5. Fuck it. 0 Celsius is the point. No, 0 Fahrenheit. Freezing. 0 Celsius, 32 Fahrenheit. There we go. Okay. All right, that's where it starts as it's frozen, by definition of frozen. Now you want to get it safely up to a safe temperature for storing. That's 37 degrees roughly through the thawing process. So you're getting it unfrozen, then even letting it come up a little bit, but you don't want it to come up too high to where room temperature bacteria can actually start to affect both the flavor and the deadliness of the meat. So another key point here is 32, 37. Yes, from there you're going to try to cook them in the oven. This middle thing is the oven, let's say. And we're going to go from 37 degrees there to 140. Now it's important you don't leave them out in in order to thaw them quicker. They have to either thaw at room temperature, get down close to the walk-in refrigerator temperature and put them there, or you can do some combination of things, but it's very easy to just sort of space out and leave them sitting on the counter for a couple of hours, and they come to room temperature and they start to turn a little bit green and stuff like that. And that can be worked around in a pinch, but you don't want that because you want your roast to mostly be a combination of a dark brown, a light brown, maybe a little bit of red, but you don't want any green in the picture because that's not, the expectation of the typical customer. You'll notice no green here. So then it comes to the roast preparation. Now this is the nasty part. You have to roll up your sleeves. You'll notice I have the standard regulation manager uniform. For the non-managers, you have to wear something that's really stupid and dorky and polyester and logos and shit all over it, and usually some stupid fucking hat. But for the managers, usually you can just get away with this, standard Arby's hat. And you want to roll up your sleeves because what you're dealing with here is this is a Arby's roast. It's at the right temperature. We've gone through all the other steps, but it's kind of sloshy and goopy. And inside of this bag, it's just a glued together, jiggling glob of stuff. And it's also going to be stuck all over the bag. So you want to get it out of the bag and get as little of that disgusting gunk on your hands, because it's just anyway. So what you want to do is you want to run a little bit of water. This kind of separates the bag from the roast itself and gives you, a place to work in where your hands are going to be kind of as clean as possible. Now you want to go in slowly because it's this, quivering mass, and you want to get kind of behind it, under it, and then you're going to come back to your sink. It's very important you be over the sink for this. And then you're going to slowly pull off the bag, and what you're left with is going to be this jiggling, horrible, ugly thing of pasted together pieces. Now, hopefully you already have your baking sheet ready with some wax paper. What you're going to do, you're going to go and flop it on. It'll make a noise like that, or maybe a little bit more gross. And then you've got the oven preset to 350 degrees. You're going to throw it in there. How long to leave it in for? Well, obviously the way things heat up in an oven, it's at 37 degrees. It's got to get to 140. I don't have time right now to review Newton's law of cooling and heating, but it's an exponential growth model, of course, where you're going to be approaching an asymptote, and that asymptote is the internal temperature of the oven. But long before you get to that, you'll pass 140, and you can apply the Newton's law of cooling thing to this. In this case, it'll come out to about 4 hours. So we need 4 hours of oven cook time. Now, think about it this way. Your lunch rush is at 11, roughly. If it takes 4 hours, that means these things have to go into the oven at 7 a.m. Now that's fine, because usually that's when someone's opening for breakfast. Where it gets tricky is if you try to do something that really does improve the flavor. Instead of cooking at 350, you cook at a higher temperature in the beginning, and then a lower temperature down to like 250. Any chef knows this. You want to kind of create a seal and more of a brown layer on the outside and more of a red juicy roast inside. It's a good way to keep the juices, Steve will tell you. So, we're going to pretend that 4 hours have elapsed. And now we're going to, this is a good thing. Always make sure you use an Arby's Oven Mitt or towel before you touch the hot pan. Okay, so here it is, and we're just going to flop it over here on the counter for a minute. So you can see what it looks like. It's lovely, and now the next step is to put it on the slicer. Now I don't have time for that step. Usually if the roast is looking good, you just put it on a standard kitchen slicer that goes around and around like this. It's very, very sharp because you need to cut this very thin, and so be very careful because it's easy to get a finger cut off, like just a fingertip, and have it land in the roast beef. And what you really don't want is for that to go unnoticed, and then some child bites into a roast beef sandwich and there's a human finger in it. Not good for business. So that pretty much covers it. I could go into the number of ounces of roast that go on the different sandwiches, but I think that's probably better covered in 2024 for Arby's Fest 2024 when Steve Fair can explain that, because he was our slash student. He really knows his shit. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you're taking good notes, but you can also ask questions in the comments section. I'd be glad to answer anything.